I think it shows that Labor are concerned that the vaccine could cause a further uptick in the coalition's fortunes, that once it's rolled out, once the people have a level of certainty that they're better protected perhaps than they are today, and the government gets further into the economic recovery, there's a lot of ground for Anthony Albanese to make up.
No, there's not. But look, there is a bit of a bounce in some of their steps. It's a very divided caucus at the moment. Some are still thinking the news poll was wrong, we're going to lose our seats. Others are thinking we've got a chance now, we're competitive, it's not looking as hopeless as it was, we're within reach. And if you take the news poll literally, they are. Now, even the government says to me the primary vote in the news poll is probably correct, 36%, 42%. And that's an uptick of 3 points for Labor and about half a point for the coalition. Remember, they only have a two-seat majority, but they don't believe in the 50-50, nor do I, frankly.
No,
I think Morrison wins at Morrison wins at the moment. Morrison wins at the moment. They're 2 or 3 points off. Well, at the election, they were like 5 points off, right? So it's almost surprising to me, given how well Morrison's done during the pandemic, that Labor are anywhere near him. You know, and I can tell you there are people in this parliament, Peter, who just don't even believe the primary numbers, but the government's saying to me they're roughly about right, we're ahead, be nice to be further ahead.
Yeah, but you've also, I think, got to understand there are plenty of people that have done it pretty tough over the last 12 months. They've been focused on sort of home and hearth issues. They're starting to get some, economic headwinds. Even if they're in work, they're probably on reduced hours, and a bit of nervousness about what will happen in March. So they're not going to reward the government until they can see we're through the health crisis and on the other side of the economic crisis. And I also think the PM, because he's cozied up to the premiers, that might have worked this time last year when they had to get agreement on big issues coming towards sort of locking down borders, particularly international borders. But I think people are willing the Prime Minister to now really lead. And if he has to clip a few sort of premiers around the ears occasionally, I think they want him to see him do that. We see what's happening in WA too. I mean, there's been some extraordinary revelations about, lack of preparedness, despite a lot of sort of cockiness over the last few months, a lot of things they could have done better in relation to this current outbreak. I want to play a grab today from the Victorian Premier. It struck me as extraordinary. He's pushing now for a 12-month extension, by and large, in terms of the state of emergency.
Without a state of emergency, the Chief Health Officer simply has no power to be able to compel people to isolate in a hotel.
Andrew, he says he's going to introduce a bill to extend it. As I said, we're out of the worst of the pandemic. We're now sort of, managing the rollout of the vaccines and things. Can we justify this? I mean, 12-month extension, state of emergency powers in Victoria, of all places?
Well, I have to say I've been surprised through the whole pandemic that these premiers have such support for pretty draconian measures. And I don't think the WA lockdown is necessary. I don't think the Brisbane one was, and I don't think the Adelaide one was. And I suspect you're of the same mind, Peter, but I can assure you we're in the minority. And to me, it looks like Scott Morrison's given up on this. He sees an election ahead. He knows every time he picks a fight with one of these premiers, it probably costs him 1 or 2 points in that state. There's certainly a feeling it did in WA when he was looking to open that border. He backed right away from that. So that's why I asked him at the press club yesterday, have you gone for eradication now, not suppression? He denied it, but I believe that he has. He's going the populist way. He's going to support these short, sharp lockdowns. He sees no point in fighting the premiers anymore. So whether that is, as you say, a negative, in the sense people start to question, well, what are you in charge of, mate? What are you actually doing? I don't know. I haven't seen the focus groups, but, on the other side of the argument, people say he's lost spark for fighting the premiers. So he's made that calculation. That's the way he's going to go this year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there that's right, but there's also, a lot of liberty that gets lost with these state of emergencies. I don't know that they're as popular as they were last year and necessarily needed. Just a quick comment. Talk today that Shane Fitzsimmons will run, former RFS Commissioner, Fire Commissioner in New South Wales, for the Liberal Party. What's the money there?
So you alerted me to this, and I've spoken to Shane Fitzsimmons, knowing you're going to ask me about it. He said he's never been approached. He's not interested in running. New South Wales Liberals tell me, of course, Gladys Berejiklian would love him to be a candidate. but it's not true. The Nationals, they believe, is responsible for pushing this story out there. Talk is he'd run for Brad Hazzard's seat of Wakehurst. Hazzard's going to retire at some point. Shane Fitzsimmons pointing out to me this afternoon, Peter, he hasn't lived there for 29 years. So people have often approached Shane Fitzsimmons about politics. I think he's happy in his well-paid public service role.
It shows he's got good judgment as well as good performance in his former role. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Andrew.